Episode 9, Hatefull Landlord. Yeah. On the sidewalk at the corner of the Chef's Grill restaurant, Mitchell Haynes clenched his fist and yelled excitedly. His outburst was a little too sudden, scaring the surrounding passersby. They looked at him strangely and pulled away from him. At this moment, he was really too excited. Too freaking excited. Mitchell Haynes was actually just an ordinary employee of Larry's real estate agency. He had been working there for a year now. Although he could be considered an old employee, he hadn't scored any decent orders. His performance was poor. He relied on the basic salary every month to pay off his bills. So until now, his work had not become official. He was barely hanging in there, waiting to hook a big shark. In fact, the company's boss had already given him a death order. If there were no more significant deals this month, he would not be able to work there next month. He would be out of a job and might get kicked from his rented apartment too. The reason Mitchell appeared on the 3rd floor of the restaurant tonight was that he wanted to make his girlfriend happy. One should know that it was not easy to have a girlfriend in the country these days. After getting one, he had to treat her like a goddess. Otherwise, it would be easy for them to break up. The real estate certificate he had in Global Financial Center was actually a big client of his company. Unfortunately, it was not his client, but his colleagues. During the time he had spent in the company, he remained honest and upright. As a result, he had developed a good reputation in the eyes of all his colleagues. Many of his colleagues would ask him for help when they were busy. He never rejected them and was very willing to help others. Today, he happened to have a colleague who was too busy, so he asked for his help with some procedures. He did not expect that this would bring him good luck and provide him with the opportunity to meet a big boss like James Tucker. His good deeds were finally repaid. Mitchell Haynes had spent several months' savings to make his girlfriend happy tonight, and it made his heart ache. But now, it seemed like it was all worth it. James's 10 floors were all empty. If he could become James's real estate agent, he would get a generous commission regardless of whether it was selling or renting. Most importantly, if he could get this client, not only would he keep his job, but he would also become an official employee, saying goodbye to the internship or probation period. Thinking about this, Mitchell became even more exhilarated. Just now, he had been waiting for James outside the restaurant, so he let his girlfriend go back first. He had now handed the business card to James and fulfilled his wish, so he quickly walked towards the home. Vanessa, let's go. What's wrong with you? After walking a few steps forward, James found out that Vanessa did not follow him. He stopped and turned around to call out to her. Nothing. I'm coming. Vanessa's train of thought was interrupted by James's shout. After shaking her head, she hurried forward and caught up to him. The two of them walked side by side into the neighborhood. The living conditions in this residential area were very poor. Even the street lamps were broken and the light was very dim. A rich young mistress like Vanessa was too unaccustomed to this place. She had been pampered since young, so her reaction was understandable. The duo quickly walked into a dark path. James could feel Vanessa's nervousness. When they walked here, she had gotten closer to him. Clearly, she was still a little afraid of such a strange and poor environment. At this time, a black shadow suddenly jumped out of the dark undergrowth in front and flashed past them. Vanessa, who was already on tenterhooks, let out an ear-piercing scream. Then she jumped to the side and put her hands around James's neck, her legs wrapping around his waist. In an instant, her entire body was hanging on James's body like a koala. Her appearance was extremely ungraceful and unladylike. Luckily, James was tall and strong. Otherwise, he would have fallen down because of her sudden jump. Don't worry, it's just a cat. James looked at Vanessa, who had her arms around his neck, and said calmly. The girl was scared witless, and her heart almost jumped out of her chest. She nodded slightly and let out a whimper. However, she did not let go of James, maintaining that indecent posture. That, Vanessa, you don't plan to come down? James coughed dryly and revealed a mischievous smile. Okay, Only then did Vanessa realize that her actions were a bit unseemly. She quickly let go of his neck and got down from his body. She felt very awkward and said shyly, "That, Mr. James, I'm sorry, James revealed a smile and interrupted Vanessa. "So as you can see, I don't live in a lavish mansion. It's still early, so you can go back home. Why don't you give it a thought?" "Mr. Tucker, does that mean you don't welcome me?" Vanessa pouted and rolled her eyes at him. No, I just think..." "All right, that's enough. Let's go upstairs." Vanessa didn't let him continue and walked straight ahead. Her sudden change in attitude surprised James. In an instant, she seemed to have reverted to her appearance outside the Western restaurant when she asked him to take her home. The two of them did not have to walk for long before they arrived in front of a 7-story building. "Let's go. I live on the 5th floor." James stretched out his hand and said to Vanessa. The awkward atmosphere from earlier had disappeared. "James, you finally came back." Just as James' voice faded, another voice sounded from the dim corridor ahead. "Mr. Landlord, it's already so late. What are you doing here?" James looked at the landlord, Glenn, walking out of the dark corridor. He frowned unnaturally, a bad feeling rising in his heart. In fact, James already knew the answer. Glenn must have come at this late hour to ask for rent. Glenn was a native of New York. He was in his 50s. Although he was skinny, his small eyes were full of shrewdness. He stared at James and asked, "Don't you know why I am here?" James also wanted to pay him the rent, but he really did not have any money on him now. All of his savings were used to buy bags and flowers for his ex-girlfriend, Natalie. He really could not take out a single cent. Although he had 10 property certificates worth billions on him, they were not cash. Hence, he felt a little embarrassed and guilty when facing the landlord, not saying anything in return. Seeing that James was silent and did not speak, Glenn said with an ugly expression, "James, you're just too much. This month is almost over, yet you haven't given me a single penny. Do you want to live in my house for free?" Vanessa, who was besides James, had a strange expression on her face. A person worth billions actually owed rent. She genuinely could not wrap her mind around this guy. However, instead of feeling repulsed, she found him even more interesting. She wanted to learn all his secrets. James glanced at Vanessa sheepishly. Then he walked up and pulled landlord Glenn to the side. He softly whispered in his ears, "Mr. Landlord, can you give me one more day? I have a friend over tonight. Give me some face, please. How about this? Tomorrow at noon, wait for me here. I'll definitely give you the rent." After all, James cared a lot about his reputation in front of Vanessa. This was the first time she had come to his place to stay, and it really made him feel ashamed. However, Glenn did not care about James's feeling at all. He waved his hand and said, "No, absolutely not. Is respect asked from others? No, you've got to earn it yourself. You want me to do it for your sake, but so what? You said the same thing last time. In the end, you still haven't given me a single cent. No, you have to pay the rent tonight. If you can't, then move out tonight." Upon hearing James's request, not only did Glenn not entertain him, he even rebuked him. His sharp words made James lose all his face in front of Vanessa. He felt disgusted in his heart. If Vanessa were not here, he would have already slapped the landlord twice. This guy was really asking for a beating. It was just 1 month's rent, and he was not running anywhere. He already said he would pay him tomorrow. For a moment, the two sides were in a deadlock. The atmosphere became uncomfortable and tense.